basement. If I read, they will come. Well, to anybody who's going to watch this later or watch it from the beginning, today we are doing a live reading of Haunted Michigan Graveyards. Now, I am not the most literate man on the spectrum, but I'll do my best to pronounce these hard words. Now we're just waiting for some viewers. Right now I'm currently at 0 viewers. And waiting. Maybe if I was in a bikini top, I'd have 1,000 people watching at the moment. Maybe a sight to see. Alright, so we're going to start off with the introduction of Haunted Michigan Graveyards I picked up at the Barnes & Noble. I can't wait to start reading. I'd have to get to the introduction first. Introduction. Who doesn't love going to a graveyard? You can visit a grave of a loved one or a famous person who is buried there. They are peaceful and quiet. Well, they are usually peaceful. For whatever reason, however, there are some graveyards where the spirits of people who are buried there are not resting in peace. For centuries, there have been stories about some graveyards being haunted, stories about people seeing spirits looking at them or standing near tombstones, hearing disembodied screams and laughter, seeing shadowy figures darting between the tombstones, and the list goes on and on. For some, the seemingly harmless and sometimes playful spirits take on a sinister feel. Unfortunately, there have also been reports over the years of people being pushed and scratched by unseen hands and having things thrown at them, and hooded figures chasing people out of the graveyards. Having been a ghost hunter since 1996, I have spent a fair amount of time in the graveyards of the state of Michigan. I have experienced a few things during my time there. I still like to visit a good graveyard now and then. In this book, I will take you to some of the haunted graveyards in the state of Michigan and tell you some of the stories and encounters that have occurred there. The best thing about the graveyards is that they are open to the public and you can visit them yourselves. And you might even encounter one or two spirits there yourself. But before you go anywhere, these graveyards yourself, or he likes that word yourself, or with a friend, and if you are going for a sole purpose of seeing something or being scared, be careful what you wish for. Alright, now we're going to Chapter 1. Chapter 1, Berry County in Michigan. Quaker Cemetery located in Nashville, Michigan. Quaker Cemetery is located in the middle of nowhere. It is surrounded by trees and swamps on 3 or 4 sides. There is a long dirt road that leads into the cemetery. I will not lie, the graveyard is hard to find. If you find it, you will have the place to yourself, as there aren't any houses or people around for miles. The actual address of the cemetery is 8495 Guy Road. The graveyard itself is pretty small, but there are few tombstones. Quite a few of the tombstones are old and weathered, making it impossible to read them. There are no hours posted, but you can probably be there as long as you want. There is a sign at the entrance of the graveyard that reads, oh boy, cursive. This is going to be fun to read. Quaker Settlement and Cemetery between 1836 and 1837. John Mott, a prominent Jackson Quaker. Oh, patent 15, wow, 1,520 acres in this area. Now, this cursive is kind of hard to read, folks, especially by a bonfire light. But it lists all the names of the cemetery. Like the cemetery was first established in Maple Grove Township in 1837. Daughters, and it just lists all there. All right. Continuing on. The tombstones to the upper right have had, whoa. The tombstones to the upper right of the cemetery have had bad vibes to them. You will have the feeling of dread and just the overall uneasy feeling. There are trees directly to the east of these tombstones, and you will have the feeling that you are being watched from the trees. On the right side of the graveyard is a cluster of small grave markers. Around the grave markers, one gets a feeling that something is watching you from down the hill. But if you look, there isn't anyone there. You might also have to, you might also have your pant leg pulled, and sometimes you will hear your name called by a disembodied voice. One of the stories going around is centered on the Revolutionary War soldier. He supposedly patrols the graveyard and guards it against any intruders. He has been seemingly mainly on the hill in the middle of the graveyard. Quaker Cemetery is long forgotten graveyard, but it is well maintained. If you find this graveyard, beware of the soldier. It has been said that he carries a weapon and will chase you off the graveyard if you dare to enter. You have been warned. Now, what gets me is the part about the Revolutionary Soldier in Michigan. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Revolutionary War was in 1776, and Michigan was not even close to being a settlement by then. So that's pretty interesting. Now, Detroit was a thing in the 1700s, but a Revolutionary War soldier being on the west side of Michigan at that time, they could confuse that maybe for a Civil War soldier. But anyways, let's move on to chapter 2, to our next cemetery. In Calhoun County. All these cemeteries are located in Michigan. I am reading from a book. I know you guys can't see well. Let's add another flame. All right, baby, light my fire. All right, back to the book. Calhoun County, Battle Creek Memorial Park in Battle Creek, Michigan. Battle Creek Memorial Park is located 2435 West Territorial Road in Battle Creek. One word of advice if you come to this graveyard: the entrance of the South Helmer Road is closed. You need to enter the West Territorial Road. I have to sneeze. Pardon me. And I lost my page. All right, you need to enter from the West Territorial Road. There's only one road into the graveyard, but there are many inside the graveyard. It would be hard to give you an exact direction to the paranormal spots. So you were kind of on your so you're kind of on your own to find them. Once you make it inside, the hours are posted from dawn till dusk. The whole time we were in the graveyard, it appeared a silver Jeep was shadowing our every move. He was always a ways from us, but when we stopped, he stopped. When we moved, he moved. When we left the graveyard, he was at the front entrance by the office. Just to be advised, you may be watched or interested in by other parties if you go there. The graveyard is flanked by Territorial Road to the north, Helmer Road to the west, houses to the east, and Columbia Avenue to the south. One of the more prominent people laid to rest is Paul Wernz Schaefer. He was a U.S. congressman, a newspaper journalist, and a publisher. There's also John Kellogg buried there, and John Kellogg is the founder of Kellogg Cereals, buried right at that cemetery. I am not sure if he was part of the Kellogg cereal family. Okay, that book says it. But I would assume that he was. In the southwest corner, there is a mausoleum for John Kellogg all around here. Well, mausoleums are pretty expensive, so assuming he is heir to the Kellogg's. All around here, you get the feeling of being watched. And I do mean by the person in the silver Jeep. If you take a picture, though, the door of the mausoleum, you might get an orb or a dust particle. All right, and then in this book, you guys can't see it. The book is called Haunted Michigan Graveyards. There is some pictures that the author took. Now, the author of this book is in the Southeast Paranormal team, so a little shout out to those guys. On the east side of the graveyard, there are 7 rows of tombstones, all in a line, laid out symmetrically. In the area, you will find a small section of land that does not feel right. The area feels laid off. There is no other way to describe it. When you feel it, you will know what I mean. In the section over to your left, you might hear some voices. They sound like these children, but you cannot hear or make out what is being said. Battle Creek Memorial Park is fairly big. It would be a nice place to visit if you have the time to spare. Since there is a lot of cool looking tombstones to see, if a silver Jeep follows you around, ask him what he wants. All right. You might have to turn on that light. I can't see squat. Now we will be moving over to our next cemetery. Once my fiance turns on the light right there, we'll be good to go. Oh wow, now you guys can see me. Hey, I can read better, look at that. Probably not, I'm a terrible reader. Alright, now we move over to the Harmon Halliday Cemetery located in Springfield, Michigan. That's probably where the Simpsons are from. Harmon Halliday Cemetery, also known as Harmon Cemetery or Holiday Cemetery, is located at O Drive North in Springfield. This graveyard is north of, well, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Wabascassin Road? Wabascassin Road? Yeah. There are no roads to take you into the graveyard. You will need to park on the side of the road, and this is a really small graveyard with only a handful of tombstones. If you look closely, however, you can find some markers that lie flat and have been covered over with grass. Some of the tombstones have been displaced by the roots. There are no hours posted, but I assume you would be there as late as you would like. Well, that's not true. Since there are no current tombstones there, most of the tombstones are from the 1800s. This graveyard is surrounded by trees to the north, south, and east, and Old Drive N runs to the west of the graveyard. There are trees across the street to the west, as well as Calvary Apostolic Church. Why can't they just say like St. John Church? There is a tree line directly to the south of the graveyard. If you stand near this tree line, you will have the overwhelming feeling of being watched. It feels like your every move is being watched closely, almost as if somebody or something wants to know why you are in this graveyard. You might also hear sobs coming from this area. It sounds like either a woman or a child is making the sound. Near the north end of the graveyard is a tombstone for a couple named Joseph and Sarah Stahl. The tombstone is an interesting one, and near here you will get the feeling of being at peace. A little to the south of this tombstone is one of Henry B. Shidemore. In front of the tombstone, you will get the feeling of anger. Over near the trees to the east, in this certain area, you will have goosebumps, and you will feel like you are not alone, even though you cannot see anyone there. It is possible there are some unmarked graves in this area, and this is why you have that feeling. They do not want to be forgotten. Harmon Halliday Cemetery is a nice little graveyard. Most of the people laid to rest here do not have family who are still alive. If you visit them, you are keeping their memory alive. There is a Civil War veteran buried there. His name is Dalton Halliday. If you come for a visit, you can go to his tombstone and render a salute and thank him for his service. Now, that's what my company specializes in. I restore abandoned cemetery. I restore abandoned cemeteries, and you guys can check out those videos on my YouTube channel. Now we're going to go over to the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Battle Creek, Michigan. Mount Olivet Cemetery does not have a physical address. It is located on South Avenue, south of East Dickman Road. The graveyard hours are not posted, but I would assume it is open from dawn till dusk. The graveyard borders an East Burnham Street to the north, and there is open land to the west. South Avenue to the east, and empty American Stamping Building to the south. Ooh, and an abandoned building. There is one entrance to this graveyard, and the road then forms symmetrically back to the entrance. There are tombstones from the 1800s, but there are also some more current ones. The entrance to the cemetery can be a little challenging if you have a vehicle low to the ground. There is very low clearance, but if you come in at an angle, you should be fine. When you drive in and follow the road to the right, on your left there is a monument of Reverend R.J. Sadler. To the right of this monument is a tombstone that is covered up with a green tarp. I do not know for the reason behind this, but right in front of the covered tombstone, you feel dread and sadness. If you follow the road around and you are directly behind the monument to the Reverend, a little to your right is a cluster of really old tombstones. It is in the area that you will get the feeling of being sad. So much, in fact, that you might even shed a tear or two. Go up the road a little bit until the monument of the Reverend is in your left. To the northeast is a little cluster of 5 older tombstones. You might hear voices and see a ball of light moving in and out of these tombstones. Near one of the bigger trees is a tombstone of Mother Margaret Flood. What looks like a nun, totally transparent, has been seen standing in front of the tombstone of Mother Flood. She has been observed standing for a few seconds and then slowly disappearing. Mount Olivet Cemetery is a nice Catholic cemetery. It has some interesting tombstones and monuments. If you see an apparition of Mother Flood, let it be. If you happen to find out why the one tombstone to the right of Reverend Sadler is covered with green tarp, please let me know. I am more than curious about why they did that to be covered. So in my experience, when you cover up a tombstone with a tarp, it's probably because you just put epoxy on it or mortar. Basically, you're repairing the tombstone. I mean, that's what I do when I repair tombstones. But here is a couple of pictures of the cemeteries. Okay, now we are moving over to Oak Hill Cemetery in Battle Creek. There's a lot of haunted cemeteries in Battle Creek. For those of you just joining, we are reading out of Haunted Michigan Graveyards. Oh, Nicole Campus says hi. Hey, back to you. Hope you're going to enjoy my illiteracy. All right, now for Oak Hill Cemetery, Battle Creek, Michigan. Oak Hill Cemetery is a grand old graveyard located in 255 South Avenue in Battle Creek. The graveyard borders Oak Hill Drive to the north, South Avenue to the west, trees to the south, and homes to the east. There is one entrance to the graveyard, and once inside, there are many roads that go in every direction. The graveyard is open from dawn till dusk. There are many distinct types and styles of tombstones made going back to the 1800s. Many notable people were laid to rest here. Among them was Julius Granger Frisk, who was a Civil War Army officer, Charles Maynard Holton, who's earned the Medal of Honor during the Civil War, and John Harvey Kellogg, who was a medical pioneer and who coined the term sanitarium. No, sanitarium. We all know that word sanitarium. Hard pronounce. And Will Keith Kellogg, who pioneered something you might eat for breakfast, the cornflake. Oh, so right there at Oak Hill Cemetery, if you guys ever ate Kellogg's before, you can go and say hi to the guy that either gave you a bland diet or a really sugary treat. When you first enter the graveyard, follow the road to the right. You will come upon a huge monument for Wynnum Risdon. Never even saw that name in my life. You cannot miss it. It has a big cross on it and will be on the right in front of you. If you walk down the road to your right, you will come upon a cluster of old veterans' tombstones. It is in the area of a black form and has been seen kneeling by one of the tombstones. In this area, there has been a black form that has been seen kneeling in the tombstones. Okay. If you drive straight ahead, there will be a road. No, if you drive straight ahead, there will be a cool church with a bell on your right. If you take the first left past the church and then take a right, you will come upon a newer veterans section. You cannot miss it, as there will be a big flagpole flying Old Glory, and the white tombstones form a circle. A blue ball of light has been seen hovering near these tombstones. Has not been seen moving, but it just stays in one spot and then disappears. Continue straight for a few feet. To the northwest is a black tombstone for W.M.J. and Phoebe A. Garfield. An apparition of a man has been seen standing just to the right of the tombstone. He will only appear for a few seconds and then he disappears. If you head to the east side of the graveyard, you will find the graves of the Kellogg family. You cannot miss the spot, as it is wrote iron fence around it. In the middle of the plot, there is a pedestal, and on the top of it, there is a sundial. There is an inscription, and it says, "The early bird gets the worm." To the right of the plot has been reports of people smelling pipe smoke, even though no one nearby is smoking a pipe. When you are on the road to leave the graveyard, the same one you came in on, when you see the last right before you leave the graveyard, you might want to stop and walk down the little road. In front of you, there will be a tombstone and plaque. There's for a sojourner truth. I have no idea what that word is. If you don't know who, if Sigonia Truth, that's a woman's name. If you don't know who she is, Google her. People have gotten chills when they walk up to her tombstone. And the inscription on the tombstone reads, "In memoriam of Sigourney Truth, born a slave in Ulster County, New York, in 18th century, died in Battle Creek, Michigan, November 26, 1883, died about 105 years old." And there's a question on the grave saying, "Is God dead?" That's what's...
Spell that name for him so we can...
So if you guys want to look up who Sigourney Truth is, the name is spelled out Sojourner, Truth. Former slave, died in Michigan, free woman at 105 years old. There is a plaque beside her tombstone that reads her name again, Sigourney Truth, renowned lecturer and reformer who is companion anti-slavery rights of women and freedom, rests here. Beside her lie her two of her 5 children. Oak Hill Cemetery has a lot of history. There is quite a few prominent people buried here. If you happen to see Mr. Kellogg, let him know his cereal is great. If you see the spirit of a veteran, thank him for his service. And lastly, if you see Sigourney, let her know to rest in peace. She deserves it. I don't even think that's how you pronounce her name. But, all right, now we're going to move over to the Reese Cemetery in Springfield, Michigan. So, for those of you who just joined, we are reading tales about haunted Michigan graveyards. So, now we are headed to the haunted graveyard of Reese Cemetery in Springfield. Springfield's here. Reese Cemetery is located at 351 North 34th Street in Springfield. There are two entrances to the graveyard. The main one is off west of Dickman Road, and the other entrance is northeast corner of North 34th Street and Shetler Street. The graveyard borders Dickman Road to the south, Helmer Road to the west, trees to the north, open land to the east, and there are many different time frames for the dates on the tombstones. There are some current dates and some going back as far as the 1800s. The posted hours that the graveyard is open from is dawn till dusk, as of all Michigan cemeteries are. If you make your way northwest to the northwest corner of the graveyard, you are in what I think is the veterans section. There is a flagpole and Old Glory flying from it. In this area, there are veterans' tombstones. If you walk across the road to the south, there is a cluster of veterans' tombstones also. I am not sure why, but there have been reports in this area of people being touched and scratched. There have also been voices heard in this area where there are not anyone around. If you go to the northeast of the veterans section, you will come across the tombstone of William T. Baggs. It is around this area that you might catch a whiff of freshly tilled earth, even though nothing has been disturbed. Just a little to the northeast of the veterans sections, you will find one long tree. Under the tree to the right is a marker for D.B. Voorhees. An apparition of a man has been standing right in front of his marker. The apparition looks down at the marker and then slowly fades away. Reese Cemetery is a nice graveyard to visit. If you happen to see the spirit of a veteran, thank him for his service. If you happen to see an apparition of a man standing by Mr. Voorhees' marker and you get the chance, ask him his name. I would be interested to know what Mr. Voorhees has to say. Thanks in advance. All right, now the next cemetery, haunted cemetery of Michigan we are headed to, is Young Cemetery in Battle Creek. Young Cemetery, aka can't even pronounce that cemetery, so it's just known as Young Cemetery. It is not even listed on Google Maps. It is near the corner of West Territorial Road and South 34th Street. South 31st Street. The graveyard butts up against Battle Creek Memorial Park to the west, Territorial Road to the north, 31st Street to the east, houses to the south. The graveyard is just to the west of Hangar Party Store. There are two entrances to the graveyard of Territorial Road, and the road into the graveyard forms a U. There is a chain link fence surrounding the graveyard. There are no hours posted, but since there is a gate, I would assume the hours are from dawn till dusk. There do not seem to be any recent burials. Most of the tombstone dates 1800s. There are a few that are hard to read because they are so weathered from being out in the elements for all these years. In the middle of the graveyard, there is a tombstone for Henry C. Eberstein. Near the tombstone, there have been reports of people smelling cigar smoke when no one is in the area smoking at all. There is also a tombstone for Alice V. Edmonds, where people have caught a smell of roses when there were not any roses in the graveyard. In the north part of the cemetery, just off the road, there is a pair of tombstones, both impossible to read because it is so old. There have been reports that some people have been pushed in the area when there is no one around to push them. Also, in the area, people have heard whispers and felt that they were being watched. Young Cemetery is a well kept, smaller graveyard. If you come to this graveyard, be on the lookout for Henry and Alice. If you happen to see their spirits, tell them hi for me and thanks. Alright, what do you guys think about these haunted cemeteries in Michigan so far? Alright, now moving over to Chippewa County. Chippewa County, Michigan. We visit Mission Hill Cemetery in Brimley. Mission Hill is located on the top of the hill in the upper peninsula of Michigan. Ooh, I love it up there. North of Brimley. There is no address listed on Google Maps, but the graveyard is located west on Tower Road off of West Lakeshore Drive. Be advised that the road leading up to the graveyard is very narrow, a one-lane road, and is in a gradual incline. The graveyard is surrounded on all four sides by trees. There are trees on one side of the road and a drop-off on the other. Two cars can pass each other on the road, but barely. There is a sign before you start your trek up to the graveyard. It says, RVs not recommended on this road. Many of the tombstones are handmade, and the majority of them are for Native Americans. The hours are not listed, but I would assume you can be there anytime with reason. When you get to the top of the hill on the left, you will find an entrance to the graveyard, but on the right there is a small parking area to enjoy the view. Its official name is Mission Hill Cemetery Scenic Overlook. It looks down on a spectacle lake. I would highly recommend taking in the view before you enter the graveyard for a bonus, visiting during the fall colors. You won't be disappointed. As you enter the graveyard, the first thing you will notice is how quiet it is because of its location on top of a hill. There isn't anything around that would create noise. The second thing that you will strike you is that the graveyard is surrounded on all sides by trees. The only breaks are the two roads that lead out of the cemetery. A little side note, there is a lot of wildlife in the graveyard, squirrels and chipmunks that have been frolicking between the tombstones. There has been reports and pictures taken of a shadowy I'm sorry, there has been reports and pictures taken that show a black shadow form shape of a child that has been seen kneeling over the graves and paying its respects. Other people have been seen a man dressed in all black with arms crossed leaning against the fence. Hey, there's a little picture here. I don't think this picture shows the ghost, but it just shows what it shows the fence that they see the ghost at. There aren't any so-called famous people buried here. However, it is hard not to notice the white picket fence that surrounds one tombstone. This is the final resting place of 8 crew members of the steamer Marion. There is a plaque by the fence and it reads, Sailors of the steamer Myron. It's Myron, I guess. During the early evening of November 22nd, 1919, the steamer slid beneath the waves of Lake Superior off Whitefish Point during a violent storm. The crew attempted to use lifeboats while the captain chose to remain on the ship. The crew perished, but the captain was found near Pearson, clinging to a portion of floating wreckage. In the spring of 1920, 8 bodies from the Marion, encased in ice, washed ashore at Salt Point. They are buried here. May they rest in peace. That's pretty tragic. The captain tried to go down with the ship, and he's the only one that survived. That's got to be terrible. The reason I mentioned the Myron at length is that I had a story told to me by family and friends who was going to the graveyard a few years ago. This is the story I was told. The husband and I were in the graveyard and we were just looking around. They were talking about the Myron, but couldn't find the plaque or the tombstone. At the time, they didn't know that the white picket fence surrounding the tombstone of the crew members. Our friend said that he looked to her right and there was an older woman dressed in Native American clothing. The older woman looked at her and pointed in the direction of the white picket fence and said, "What you are looking for is over there." Our friend said she looked in the direction of the old woman that had pointed and saw a white picket fence. She looked back to Vanker and the old woman was gone. Our friend said that she looked around and didn't see the old woman. There was no way that the old woman could have left the graveyard that fast without being seen. She asked her husband where the old woman went. He replied, "What old woman? What are you talking about?" He never saw her. Now, I can't guarantee if you take a trip to Mission Hill, you will encounter either the old Native American woman or the man leaning against the fence, or for that matter, the childlike form. But I can't say that you won't. Mission Hill Cemetery is a nice graveyard if you want to see some good examples of homemade tombstones and monuments. If you do venture up there, I would recommend stopping in at the Dancing Crane Coffee House on West Lakeshore Drive, just a few minutes from the graveyard. Native American owned business. They have hot chocolate that is to die for, no pun intended. Okay. Time is it? It's already 10:20. Been on for 43 minutes. Okay, folks. Well, I am going to wrap it up for the evening. I have an abandoned cemetery to go restore tomorrow. Which, if you're new to my channel, I restore abandoned cemeteries, and you can check out plenty of those videos on there. I'll have another video coming up this Tuesday. So, to the one person that's still lingering around, thank you so much, and have a good night. No, can't get off here. I know that. Here we go.